Today we're going to be covering The Flash. I know a lot of you guys enjoy The Flash, but this is going to be an older, a more classic storyline. You see, during the 80s, Barry Allen died. He sacrificed himself for the good of the entire universe, and the character known as Wally West stepped up from being Kid Flash to being The Flash. He went on many adventures, but somewhere around the early 2000s, Geoff Johns, one of my favorite writers, the guy who brought you that epic known as The Blackest Night, got an early start at DC by doing a rather successful Flash run. We're going to bring you the entire Geoff Johns Wally West Flash run. And what that means is we're going to start it today. This is an awesome story as long as you're aware that it takes place before everything that is going on in DC Comics right now. And I hope you enjoy. We'll be explaining as we go what is happening. So let's get started. As two officers put Wally West in jail, one tells him, "Fastest man alive, never heard of you." The officer, Shire, slams Wally into the front desk, and Wally shouts, "Wait, I'm the Flash! You can't do this!" Shire throws Wally against the wall, telling him, "Sure, you're just another costumed crook. Just look at your partner who helped kill Officer Nick Kelly." Wally thinks to himself, "All right, gotta backpedal a little bit. I just gotta get outside and think for a moment." He breaks free from the officers and he goes to run outside, except the officers catch him and knee him in the stomach. Wally asks himself, how did he catch me? Are they super fast or am I just slow? I can feel the speed force, but I can't run with it. So for now, I better just go along with whatever they're doing before they make it worse. As the officers drag Wally out, one hits Wally with his baton, and Wally kicks the officer's helmet off. Shire asks Mick if he's all right, and Wally asks, "Wait, Mick? As in Mick Rory? Heatwave?" Shire and Mick continue to beat down on Wally until finally he's thrown in jail. But before leaving, Mick looks at Wally's boots and finds a gray substance. And he says that they should probably get this checked out. Could be some kind of drug. As Wally lies in his cell, his vision begins to fade and change. And he sees Jay Garrick. Except it's not the Jay that he knew. But this Jay is more sinister and twisted, and as Wally calls out to him, Wally starts to wake back up. Then a voice calls out to Wally saying that it's about time that he woke up. She has something for him if he's thirsty. Her name is Fiona, the resident social worker from the department, and all she wants to do is have a talk and figure out what's going on. So what's the last thing that he can remember? Wally takes the glass of water, and he says that the last thing that he can remember is running. Fiona asks him, "What are you running from?" And Wally tells her, he doesn't run from anything. Fiona starts writing in her pad telling him, "Of course, let's see. You're 26, single, still living with your mother? And what about that emblem on your chest?" Wally tells her, "It's my legacy. It represents the speed at which I can travel. Jay was the first to wear a lightning bolt, and then Barry became the Flash and he put the circle behind it to represent unity." As Wally is thinking this answer and not actually saying it, Fiona asks, "How about it? Are you going to answer?" And then her words trail off. Wally looks back at the glass of water and he asks, "Huh? What? What did you do to the water?" Fiona tells him that it's a heavy truth serum and tranquilizer, but his metabolism is breaking it down faster than she had hoped, so she's gonna come back later and learn some more from him. Fiona smiles and slinks away, and Wally sits down thinking, this can't be right, I can't be single. If there's one thing that I never leave home without. The Flash suit retracts, and Wally sees his wedding ring, and he tells himself, I'm not crazy. And just as he says that, he hears someone outside shouting that they are late. The voice sounds familiar. Wally looks out the bars of his cell to see a man by the name of Barry Allen, the individual who supposedly died in the last major crisis, the Flash, who passed on, allowing Wally to become the Flash. Wally calls out to him with no answer, and then Wally starts to charge himself up so that he can vibrate through the wall. But when he touches it, he's knocked back. Mick runs back over asking what's going on here, but as he finishes his sentence, he's hit with something. Ice begins to form around him, and then a man punches Mick's head off, telling him, Central City, Detroit, Gateway, no matter where I go, the cops are always the same. Captain Cold steps in and says, it looks like the Flash is in a bit of a fix, huh? Cold tells Wally, hurry up, we have to get you out of here. And as they leave, Wally begins to ask, what is going on? It seems like you're the only person who knows who I am. Cold tells him, I'm not sure either. I just woke up 3 hours ago. I remember chasing you around, and now Keystone City is all upside down. And as for Central, well, I'm just gonna have to show you. But as the two sneak out, an officer spots him and calls out that their new visitor and Mr. Freeze is on the loose. The radio responds that they need West alive, and as for Mr. Freeze, that doesn't matter. Cold shouts, Come on! That lovesick freak with an ice pistol? It shoots snow! This is a Cold gun! Cold raises his arm, and the officer smacks it out of his hand, and a brawl erupts. As everyone's throwing punches, Cold reaches out for the gun, and then he freezes the officer's chin. Wally shouts for him to wait, and Cold punches the officer's jaw off, telling him, "My name is Cold!" After freezing the rest of them, Wally slams Cold into the wall, telling him, "No more killing! If you want my help, then you're gonna have to play by my rules." Cold tells him, "Fine, whatever you say, Flash." As the two escape the police station, Wally says that they're gonna need to head to the home of the one guy who started all of this, Jay Garrick, the first Flash. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Plunder finishes killing off more officers as Thinker contacts him, telling him that he's going to have 3 more targets. These 3 are going to hold the key to their success. Be sure to get them. A short while later, with Wally, they reach Joan Garrick's house, and as he rings the doorbell, a man walks out and points a gun at Wally's face. Joan asks who is it, and Edward tells her, "It's just a damn costume freak. Let's get back inside." Wally pulls his mask down and he calls out to Joan, and as Joan gets closer, Edward pushes her inside, telling her, "I said get back inside!" Wally tackles Edward and tells Cold, "Help Joan!" And as he does, he points his gun back at Edward. Wally calms Cold down and he asks Joan, "It seems like you knew something. Did you know me or Jay Garrick?" Joan's eyes water up and she says, she knew Jay. She goes on stating that she visits him every day, but Edward would kill her if he knew. Cold comes back outside telling everyone, "I hope I'm not bothering, but we should probably get going." Wally storms off telling Cold, "I hate running off like that, leaving her with a drunk." Cold tells him, he won't be roughing her up tonight. "Me and Eddie back there, we worked it out." The two head out to where Joan said that they could find Jay, and as the rain pours, Wally looks at Jay's grave. As he reads what happened, Wally says that Jay died from the lab accident. It didn't give him super speed, which means Jay Garrick was never the Flash. Cole tells him, actually, no one was. And Wally says that he's starting to understand that. Even Barry's still alive. Cole holds out a book titled The Death of the Hero. I swiped this back at Jones. It's a book about all of the heroes and their fall from grace. Everyone's in here. Green Lantern, Batman, but there's no mention of the Flash. Wally looks at the book and he says, this is a world without the Speed Force. Cold goes on stating that this world was full of superheroes that died in the line of duty, starting with Aquaman. After people lost their faith in heroes, it was the children's turn, and the Teen Titans tried to do better, but it also ended in death. Afterwards, some of the remaining heroes became judge, jury, and executioner, and the law decided to follow suit. Cold then leads Wally up a hill and he tells him, look, Central City's all but destroyed. It's like these cities don't reflect each other. Wally says, wait, reflect? And then he asks Cold, aren't you right-handed? Cold tells him, well, yeah. And Wally points out, you've been firing with your left hand, which means that we're in a mirror world, which means I know who's responsible for this. But then Wally's interrupted by the officer shouting, freeze! And Wally looks back to see Barry's pointing a gun at him. Wally tells him, wait! And Barry aims his gun, telling Wally, I want answers, because you sure as heck aren't my nephew. Wally pulls back his mask, telling him, I know, it's these damn mirror worlds. Just let me show. And Shire shouts, it's some kind of trick. And him and the other officers begin to open fire on Wally and Cold. After ducking behind a gravestone, Cold rolls back out, creating a cold spot, freezing the bullets as they hit the wall. Wally tells everyone that they should put their weapons down and talk. Bullets won't fly through that wall. And then another voice tells him, that's right, but light will. A beam of light shoots by, hitting Barry and the others, and they all turn into glass. Mirror Master tells him, that is all courtesy of me. And yes, I know it does look bad on my part, but Cold here is just as much to blame as I am. Wally looks back at Cold, asking him, what aren't you telling me? And Cold shouts, nothing. I'm trapped in this wonderland just like you. Mirror tells him, he is telling the truth, though. He probably doesn't remember a thing. Traveling through these fractionalized mirror dimensions plays havoc on your mind. While Wally and Mirror bicker about returning Barry back to normal, Cold tells him, look, I really don't care much for this work, so if you could, just zap us back home, Mirror Master. And Mirror tells him, actually, you were involved in this from the beginning. It was actually you who planned on breaking free when we were being transported to Stryker's Island. Once we managed to break free, the superheroes came to stop us. But before we could get blasted by Super Kid's vision, a voice told us to run for the light. So we did. As soon as we passed through the portal, we were outside of Keystone City, and a man appeared before us. He didn't give us his name, but he said that all he wanted was to have the Flash destroyed, and with his help, we would have a defenseless Keystone City. All we had to do was stage a kidnapping on none other than the Flash's new wife. That's when I had to show up and zap you all into a mirror. But instead of just sending the Flash there, the gun sent all three of us there. And that's when I knew we'd been double-crossed. So while Wally was getting up for falling in the middle of traffic, I ran off. The problem is that now my gun is broken and I can't get back home. But thankfully, the Mirror Master of this world is dead, and some of his equipment is on display in the Green Lantern Museum. The next problem that we face is that we can't stay in these reflections for long. The longer that we stay, the more warped and twisted they'll become, and eventually they'll collapse like when it all started. Wally tells him, great, now go ahead and change everyone back to normal. Mirror Master restores everyone, and then the three of them escape, and as they do, Barry tells the officers that he wants that man found, and he wants him dead. Meanwhile, back with the Thinker, Plunderer asks, so why do we need these three again? And Thinker tells him, I learned something going over the readings on my temporal displacer, a disturbing fact about our universe, that it's all just a wonderful lie. So before we kill them, we need the three of them alive, so we can pinpoint their molecular frequency and go to their world. Back with Wally and the others, they arrive at the Hal Jordan Museum. Wally looks at the last recorded photo of Hal during the hero's greatest fights. Cold laughs, saying, Barry was the one who died saving the planet on our world. Look what good that did, huh? As Wally turns to yell, Mirror Master says that he found it, and he grabs the lenses, and that's when the statue next to him is shot. Plunderer tells everyone that they should probably think about not moving, and as everyone begins to run, Plunderer shoots Cold in the shoulder. Wally tells everyone to head into the Mirror Master Mirror Maze, and then Plunderer places the chip into his rifle, asking Wally, I heard that you were the fastest where you came from. Can you outrun lasers? Mirror shouts that he can just get rid of this guy, and then he holds out his gun as one of the lasers bounces into his gun, shocking him. Mirror tells everyone, that's not good, he activated my gun, and Cold asks, so? Suddenly the reflections of all three of them in the mirrors begin to walk out, and Mirror shouts, this isn't good at all! The reflections crawl out of the mirrors, and each of the men begin to fight themselves back, but Plunderer begins to reload. Wally grabs his reflection, throwing it into Plunderer, shattering it, and he says, that really wasn't that tough. Cold looks at his reflection, and then he says, man, you should really just give up. The reflection shouts in reverse, good, I'll kill you quick. And as he runs, Cold freezes the ground, trips the reflection into the mirrors, and it shatters. Cold then says, man, what a waste. Guy was pretty good looking. Over with Mirror Master pushes his reflection back into the mirror, but the reflection grabs him, pulling him inside. Wally and Cold run up, and Wally asks, what should we do? And Mirror shouts, use yourselves! Wally thinks about it and he tells Cold, follow my lead. Using their reflections, Wally and Cold pull the two Mirror Masters apart because their reflections are them, so they're already in the mirror world. And just as they do, the bullets shoot through, breaking the glass. Mirror falls out of the glass, and then Cold asks, so what the hell is that portal thing coming after us? Mirror shouts that they need to hurry up and leave. All he needs is a large reflective surface. And as he says that, Plunderer shoots out the mirrors, telling them, you're never gonna leave here! Just then, a giant purple orb is shot, grabbing both Cold and Mirror. Plunderer fires another shot, but Tinkerer radios in that them two alone will open up the portal. He'll just have to saw one of them in half and bring them in. As Wally gets away, he breaks into the supervillain armory in the Hal Jordan Museum, and he locks the door. He tells himself that he needs to think of something, and then he starts to grab all of the villain's weapons on display. Wally then says, for the first time, I know what it feels like to be a rogue. Just outside, Plunderer begins to load up Cold and Mirror into their device when he's blasted in the back. He tells Wally that he has two choices. Come quietly or don't come at all. As Flash charges in, both him and Plunderer stop because they hear someone shout, fire! And suddenly the Hal Jordan statue explodes. Plunderer runs to his van, and as he drives off, the officer shouts to Wally to stop where he is and put both arms in the air. Wally puts one up, and then he fires Sonar's sound gun. The officers begin to shout and scream, and another group grabs Wally from behind. Wally then pushes the button on Dr. Light's anti-grav belt, and he shoots up into the sky. He begins to think that he kind of likes his flying thing, but over in the Thinker's lab, the Thinker says soon, we'll be in a reality of a world where there are soft police and even softer heroes. But before he can press the button on his machine, Wally rockets through the window, breaking open the tube that Cold is in. Wally shouts that he's only going to tell him this once, and then Plunderer jumps in from the window after him. Thinker shouts that they still have no way of going home without him. If this process isn't perfectly executed, then the result could create an atomic explosion 50 times the size of the A-bomb. Behind him, though, Cold grabs Mirror, helping him out of his tube, and as they grab Thinker, they throw him into the tube. The computer then says that the molecular deconstruction techniques are activated. Transfer cell structures to what location? Mirror says, how about we spread them into every computer in Keystone? And Cole tells him, that sounds good. Thinker shouts for them to stop, but then his body is pulled apart and broken down to the molecular level. Back with Wally and Plunderer, the two continue fighting as they bounce around in the air using the anti-grav belt, and that's when Plunderer grabs Dr. Light's belt. Wally catches himself, and he grabs Cold and Mirror's weapons from Plunderer, and then he presses the button on Light's belt. With a sudden rush of force, Plunderer is shot into the air, and he shouts, "I won't be left behind!" As Wally starts to pull himself back up onto the platform, Cold and Mirror help him up, and Cold creates a giant reflective surface. Cold then tells Wally that he was really getting comfortable with those gadgets, and Wally tells him, "No, I never will like these things." Mirror then tells everyone, "All right, time to click your heels 3 times and buckle up." As the three are pulled into the portal, there's a crack-a-boom! And Wally starts to feel the Speed Force re-establishing itself. The lightning strikes Wally, and he feels his blood igniting. And just like that night that he was back in Barry's lab, he suddenly has his speed. He looks around and he sees the lightning streaks, and then he thinks, "Oh yeah, the Flash is back." Mirror reaches to the ground, picking up a ring, telling him that it seems that they were trapped inside this little diamond. Wally looks at it, realizing that it's Linda's wedding ring, and he grabs Mirror Master. "What did you do to my wife?" Wally then starts to vibrate his hand, telling Mirror Master, "When I go through things, I can make them explode." Cold shouts, "Actually, you might want to look, because Keystone City is gone." And there you have it, the beginning of the Jeff Johns run for The Flash. And I hope you guys truly did enjoy it, because honestly, when I started reading it, I wasn't sure if it was going to be any good because it's so old, but it was really, really good. And I'm like, we have to do this storyline. Now, if you subscribe to this channel, you will get the continuation to this storyline in 2 weeks. You see, what we're going to do for a little while every Thursday is bring you The Flash, the Jeff Johns Flash, and then Deadpool Core. We're going to go back and forth between the two of them, so if you subscribe to the channel, you'll be able to keep up with The Flash and Deadpool and whatever else we bring you, which includes current Flash runs. Now, click right here to get yourself the Flash playlist, and click right here to get yourself something recommended by YouTube. And down here, you'll find that subscribe button, which will allow you to hang around and join the Comicstorian army. Thank you guys, and I will see you next time, right here.